The tomb number 9 in the collection of the great southern tombs of Amarna is the tomb of Maho, who was the sheriff or the chief of the police in Aton city or Akhit Aton. Being aware of the danger of the theft of his tomb after death, and seeing how the ancestors' tombs were robbed, he had used his police talents to choose that secretive location for his tomb and safety for the place of his eternal rest. Indeed, he succeeded in keeping his small tomb safe, not only during the political changes that happened so soon, but he has also survived the violation of the current thieves. The design of the tomb follows the style of the intersecting corridors, for its first hall intersects the axis of the tomb. Then the inner chapel is elongated with a bit of deviation. The work in the tomb was never finished, as well as the carving in the niche behind. A staircase descends from that chamber. Its 47 steps lead to the burial chamber. At the inner wall of the entrance, there are reliefs representing the king and the queen and Princess Merit Aton in the presence of god Aton. Nefertiti and her daughter shake the rattle to the sun disk, while Maho kneels at the bottom. On the other wall to the right of the entrance, Maho kneels praying. On both the front and the rear walls, Maho receives rewards from Akhenaton for his loyalty in his service, once in front of the palace and in another scenes in front of the temple of Aton. The symbolic aim was to show that Maho, being the chief police, was responsible for the safety of the crown and the temple. The scenes that were drawn with black ink were being checked by the chief artist before getting relieved. This means that the scenes in black were left unfinished. On the upper part of the wall in the chief of the police tomb, Maho is seen heading a police troop bigger than the one represented in another scene. The division is lined up in 6 lines, each with 5 officers. The accompanying text says, "The police of the city of Akhit Aton chant and cheer with these words, 'As long as Aton rises, he shall remain forever.'" The southern rear wall of the hall comprises a very important and a unique scene that doesn't exist in all of Amarna. Obviously, it was painted specially for the chief police. At first, the king and the queen are seen riding with their daughter Merit Aton in the same chariot, leaving the temple. It's noticeable how the queen is keen on talking to the king, or maybe kissing him, while his head is not directed towards the driving directions. The princess takes advantage of that and pricks the active horses with a stick. This marvelous scene proves how far the artist was free in his representations and how accurate his observations were, and his veracity in recording. The royal procession of King Akhenaton and Queen Nefertiti in Maho's tomb was going for an inspection mission to the defense centers represented in a small fortress. Maho is seen with his 15 officers running in front of the chariot. What's amazing is that the minister and the officer with inferior rank had to keep up with the royal horses, which they did with an apparent difficulty now that they weren't young and fit anymore. In the tomb of Maho, the chief police of Amarna, Maho expresses his untiring activity by all possible means. for he stands behind the royal chariot to bid them farewell, showing his loyalty at the time he kneels in front of the troop which was supposed to run in front of the chariot. It's astonishing to see him keen later on being the first to welcome the royal couple when they arrive to their destination. What an excellent model of a chief of police. The southern end of the front hall comprises a series of amazing scenes which seem to reflect the daily activities of the police, like supplying police stations with provisions and doing inspections on the police stations which Maho supervised. We can't feel anything but respect to this chief police when we see him bringing along his pet dog and arresting criminals with the help of his officers who carry weapons, then bring on their prisoners in front of him while saying, "May you, mighty prince, be kind to check out and inspect these men who are instigated by foreigners." It's believed that there was a conspiracy set to assassinate Akhenaton, and that Maho terminated the attackers by bringing them to court. Maho had his personal carriage which enabled him to move around his centers rapidly. So if the police of our modern times are complaining from the exhaustion of work, they need to remember that the police of Akhenaton did the job multiple-fold. The scenes in Maho tomb should be regarded as an oasis in the desert compared to the formal scenes of the royal family performing their duties repeatedly in Amarna tombs. After the death of Akhenaton, Egypt passed by a short period of internal troubles which endangered the throne. But thanks to Ai and his hidden role to support Semenkhkara, the other brother of Akhenaton, to destroy Nefertiti's plans against him and to rule Egypt. It was also Ai who successfully placed Tutankhamun on the throne after arranging his marriage to Ankh-es-en-Pa-Aton, the third daughter of Akhenaton. After settling the political situation in Egypt, he went on with his reparations, which included cancelling the war rules of Akhenaton and returning the cult of Amun to win back the power of the priests and the army in order to support the new royal family. This act declared the official war between him and Queen Nefertiti. We have no clue about the position that Ai occupied during the reign of Tutankhamun, for the monuments of this period has no mention of Ai, but his tomb in Amarna show his high position during the reign of Akhenaton. The whole of the tomb is quite big compared to the rest of the tombs here, not forgetting that what adds to its majestic style is that it was totally cut out in the rocks. 24 columns were intended to be cut out here, but work started in 15 only. They were supposed to be papyri columns. 4 were actually done. The scenes in the tomb are quite traditional, for they describe Ai receiving donations and gifts from Akhenaton. It's the least he deserved after his services to the king and after supporting his religious revolution in all its stages. Ai sat on the throne of Egypt after the death of King Tutankhamun, for he is a father god who acquired a high rank during the reign of King Akhenaton, and thus his successor, King Tutankhamun, the young pharaoh who ruled at the age of 9 and died 9 years later. It's unknown if I married the widow of King Tut or one of the princesses of the royal family to earn the right of becoming the ruler of Egypt. But putting the title of the god's father within his cartouche proves that he was connected somehow with the royal family. During the reign of King Tutankhamun, I did all the necessary reformings concerning political and religious conditions. In fact, it was him who arranged the marriage of Tut with the third daughter of Akhenaton, whose name is Ankh-Sen-Pa-Aton, so that he could claim the throne. Under the name of Tut, he sent the army abroad to achieve two goals, the first of which is to resecure the Egyptian influence over Syria, and second, to make way in front of him to establish a new governmental system. So he placed a man heading the army, but he wasn't of a royal blood. As for Ai, he started his reformations by returning all the possessions of Ammon to his priests, and by the end of the first year of King Tut's reign, all the reformations were finished, and King Tut converted his name from Tutankhaton to Tutankhamun, and his queen became Ankh-Es-Amon instead of Ankh-Es-En-Pa-Aton. Then I brought them back with him to Thebes, where they all stayed until the death of King Tut. The importance of Priest Ai tomb is that it comprises the complete version of Aton's anthem. This chant with which King Akhenaton appealed to his god Aton has special importance from both religious and literature sides. As for the religious side, researchers compared between it and the Psalm number 104 of Prophet David's Psalms, regarding the similarity of some sentences and vocabulary, and also the theme of the chant, in spite of the 400 years between them. From literature point of view, the anthem is a high piece of writing, which level can place it among the international splendid pieces of literature, within the known frames of eloquence, language, and simplicity of expression. The word Aton means the sun, or the visible disk of the sun, during Akhenaton's reign. Aton became the only god of the country according to his call for the unity of God. Aton doesn't take a human or an animal shape, but was only pictured as a sun disk, which rays looked like arms, ending by hands that offer life and power and vitality. That's how he is found in tombs and in many of the houses of Tell el Amarna, on stelae which were placed there to be worshipped. Aton wasn't worshipped for his materialistic existence as a sun disk, but for being the force that's inherent in it. It's the power that gives life, light, illumination, and heat to the existence, for he is a creator god and an offerer of life. Priest Ai tomb structure is a prototype of the tomb of the Valley of the Kings, although it is situated in another valley nearby called the Valley of the Monkeys. It's composed of a corridor with steps that lead to a chamber preceding the burial chamber, which is decorated, and that happened after he became a king. The scenes are a mix of religious books and daily life scenes, which is quite unusual. The most captivating scene that steals the attention is the monkey scene. It's the one after which the whole valley got its name. This is part of the book of the Imid Wat, or what exists in the netherworld. This book is divided into 12 chapters or hours of night time. That's when the sleeping dead accompanies the sun in its night journey on its boat. Each chapter represents one of the 12 hours and is a complete unit unattached to the rest of them, either before or after. The first hour is called El Mati, or the Justice One. It's the only one with 4 rows. The rest of the hours have 3 rows each. The baboons are a part of that first hour. The middle row comprises a sun boat, in which the sun is represented in the form of Atom, which is its night form. The upper and lower rows are the 2 banks of the river, and display the creatures and the events which the sun god and the deceased will encounter. He should know all what he is going to face in order to overcome these obstacles and reach the 12th hour and be reborn again with the sun in the morning, and hence enjoy a happy eternal life in the nether world. In the funeral of King Tut, A was seen marching ahead of it, dressed as a king. On the eastern wall of King Tut's burial chamber, a high-ranked man is seen specialized in the funeral. That man is the head of the army, Horemheb. A was represented in that scene as a king, which shows how A honored Horemheb and left no room for grudge or enviness into the soul of that young leader. But what happened later was covered with a pitch black curtain. For all what we heard of A is that he visited Memphis on the 3rd day of the 11th month of the 1st year of his reign, and it was the headquarters of Horemheb. As for the last date in which King A was mentioned in history, it was the 5th year, the 12th month, and the 1st day. A might have died, or Horemheb could have revolted against him after the death of Ankh-es-Enpa Aton, his wife. What's well known is that when the death of I was announced, Horemheb was in Memphis, and he marched out of it in a great procession. In his reliefs, Horemheb ignored the period of the reign of A altogether. Moreover, he destroyed his monuments and removed his name wherever it was found. As for his funerary temple, which A usurped from King Tut, Horemheb seized it for himself, for he considered himself its true founder, and he erased Tut's name and placed his name instead. In that aspect, he wasn't far from truth, for he is the one who ordered the constructions of King Tut when he was his guardian. The proof is that he didn't vandalize his tomb or placed his name on King Tut's personal belongings. As for his attitude with A, it was completely different, for he had shown him a usurper to the throne, which he considered legally was his, being the guardian of King Tut. For that, very few of A's monuments remained. One is his tomb in Amarna, and the other is his beautiful tomb in Thebes.